We now define what is a wireframe and what is a prototype. You can create wireframes on paper or you can work on it using Figma. One thing that you have to recall is that wireframes should be low fidelity. It should be easy to create. It should be fast to create. The main purpose of a wireframe is to generate as much layout as you want to produce. This will inform your low-fi prototype and of course your high-fi prototype. However, before you actually generate your wireframe, you need to understand first what screens are you going to develop. You're going to know this by understanding your whole task flow. Task flow are simply point A to point B of the user. For example, from the landing page up to the confirmation of payment. For the sake of this discussion, since we have very limited time, we're just going to create a section of our landing page, which is the header and the hero section. Let's start. To create a wireframe, we're going to start creating frames. So frames are simply like artboards on Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop. So they contain any elements that you're going to put inside of it. So to create a frame, you can click F and then the icon will change. You can drag to your desired pixel size. You can also customize using this panel, for example, 1080 by 1920 if you are like creating IG story, delete. Or you can actually go to this icon, the frame tool icon, click that. And if you're going to observe, your panel here changes. So these are the preset pixel size of frames. So this is a handy tool to create a lot of frames from different sizes without going to Google and searching for the pixel size. Delete that. Since we're designing for the web, we have to create a frame for desktop. Fortunately, we already have that preset, the desktop preset. Let's click that. And that we already have our desktop preset there. Let's rename. To rename, you can go to the left panel, then click to the frame that you want to rename. Right click, click rename, or you can click Control R. Let's rename this to Reeve Wireframe Hero. So we already have the frame for our Surib Hero section. You can also add grid. Grid will allow you to have some kind of guide. For example, I usually use a 12-column grid, something like this. You can create a grid by creating the by clicking the plus icon here, then clicking this icon. From grid, you can choose columns. Then you can change from there. For example, you want it to be like 12. You want it centered. You want it left, right, depending on your project. So I want it to be centered and maybe 8. Okay. So grid are very important before, since screen sizes are limited. But now we have different screen sizes. So typically the purpose of grids right now is just to guide your layout, to allow white space. You can show or hide grid by clicking Shift G. That's it. We now have our frame to put our header and our wireframe for the hero section. Let's now add something that will represent our logo. And that something is a very simple rectangle. So to create a shape, go to the shape tool, click, then just drag. That's just like what you have done on the frame tool. Let's hide first the grid. So this one will represent our logo. We want our logo to be centered. We also want to have some kind of icons here. To do that, click this rectangle tool, Control C, Control V to duplicate, and we now have a duplicated version. If you want to change its dimension, just click it and then drag. Or of course, you can also go here. For example, you want it to be exactly 60 by 60. You can also do that. All right. So we want to have like 3 icons there. So we can Control C, Control V, or we can also hold Alt to duplicate. If you want to align different elements, you can select all. Then let's make this obvious. Select all. Then once you hover on the rectangle that contains all of these elements, you're going to see this little blue icon here with 3 lines on it. If you click that, it will distribute all of the elements within the frames you selected. If you want to adjust, just drag this pink line there and you can do so. Add another here. Right. So we now have our wireframe of our header. What we want to do next is to give them some rounded corners that they wouldn't like have that edge. So to do that, select all, go to this panel, go to the corner radius, you can drag, or you can actually type 8. That's it. That is now our wireframe. Now we would also want to have some kind of text here. We can already use this. Maybe a little smaller and let's change this color to something darker to represent a header. Probably longer. To center any object on your frame, click the element, then go to this alignment if you want it left centered, right centered, or centered within the frame, or if you want it to be top, middle, or bottom. That is now our header. Let's create our subheader, maybe a little longer, still centered, different color. To change our color, click the object, go to fill, then just change. If you want to copy any color you have on the screen, just go to the eyedrop tool and then copy. Maybe duplicate that one. We now have a representation of our header, of our navigation, our header text, a subheader. We now need some kind of our a representation of our CTA. To do that, let's just duplicate this again. Then change the color, probably black. And then some kind of text inside that. We now have our CTA button. Next is a representation of the image. So to do that, just go to the shape tool, create a rectangle, something like this. Then add some stroke. To add some stroke, go to the design panel, go to stroke, click the plus icon, and you can see that it already has some stroke. Let's increase the stroke size like that. And then we can put a cross here. So we have different options to do that. We can use the pen tool or we can use the line tool. I prefer the line tool. Go to the corner. Then just drag, change the size. Use 3, Probably better to use 3 as well. Control, copy, Control V, it's pasted there. If you want to flip, right click, flip horizontal, and just adjust accordingly. You can also use a frame tool to do this, but I just want to show you how to use the shape tool. Right, then we now have a representation of our image. Now what I want to have here is, this is my header, and I want to have like a creative shot of the serif in this background. Then so what I'm going to do is Control X, cut. I'm going to choose my frame, Control V, that is pasted in front. To put that below, right click on the item, and then click send to back, or you can just hit your left bracket. Okay, so you won't be able to see the other elements that we have put there because they have the same color. So what we want to do probably is to change the color. To do that, go to our fill here. Let's just change to something very darker. Like that. And also the image. So that's it for our wireframe. We have created the navigation, header, subheader, and of course our CTA. Now, just to show you how would the landing page and product page whole wireframe would look like, I have created something like this. So we have our header, we have our footer, we have our hero section, image, and then some text section. We have here the product page section as well. So that's how would it look like if it was completed. Next up, we're going to discuss how to convert this wireframe into our lo-fi prototype.